The story begins not with the courtroom, but with a shoebox of dreams. Ever since I was little, my dad used to pat my shoulder and say, "Work hard, study well, your college fund is waiting." I believed him. Each birthday check from relatives, every holiday gift tucked away, every promise he made, it all built a vision of me walking across a graduation stage, diploma in hand. But dreams don't always shatter suddenly. Sometimes they crack slowly until one day you see the pieces on the floor. Mine broke when I logged into the bank account and saw zeros. The money wasn't there. All those years gone. My dad didn't flinch when I confronted him. He just sighed and said, "I had loans. Family comes first. You should be grateful I even kept this house for you to live in." Grateful. That word stung like fire. Grateful for betrayal? Grateful for a broken promise? But instead of giving in to silence, I spoke. The truth found its way into the walls of a courtroom, where my dad, the man I once admired, stood and pointed at me as if I were the problem. "She's ungrateful," he said, "after all I've done." I'll never forget the chill of that room, the way the judge raised an eyebrow, the air thick with disbelief. I had to find my voice that day, not just to defend the fund, but to defend myself. And when I finally did, I felt something powerful. Strength. Independence. The courage to say, "I am not ungrateful for wanting the future I was promised." Walking out of court, I realized something. Money can be stolen, but resilience cannot. Promises can break, but determination rebuilds. Yes, I lost my college fund, but I didn't lose myself. And sometimes, that's the most important investment of all. So here's my call to anyone who's been betrayed by the people you trusted most. Don't let their choices define your future. Don't let guilt chain you. You are more than their mistakes. Your dreams may take longer. The path may be harder, but your future is still yours to claim. And when you finally build it with your own two hands, no one, not even family, can take it away. The shock of discovering the college fund was emptied by the very person I trusted most felt like a storm breaking through a calm sky. I had grown up believing that this fund was a safety net stitched together for me, an invisible hand holding out hope for my future. Every time my dad mentioned it, I felt proud. Proud that my family believed in my education. Proud that all those birthdays and tucked-away checks were building toward something meaningful. But one evening, when I sat down at the desk with my laptop open and the glow of the screen filling the room, my chest tightened. I logged into the account, expecting comfort in numbers that symbolized a dream. Instead, the screen looked hollow. The balance was not low, it was empty. At first I thought it had to be a mistake, maybe a glitch. I refreshed, checked statements, searched for answers my heart already knew, but my mind wasn't ready to face. Each line of withdrawals felt like a blow, each date reminding me of trust slipping away unnoticed. My stomach turned cold as the realization sank in. It wasn't an error. My dad, the man who promised me security, had drained it. I sat in silence for what felt like hours, the hum of the laptop loud against the quiet of the room. Memories replayed, me asking about college applications, him smiling and saying, "Don't worry, you're covered." I thought of late nights when I dreamed of walking through ivy-covered gates with confidence, of a future built on books and effort, and now all of it had been erased. Not by fate or accident, but by a choice. His choice. The betrayal didn't just sting, it hollowed me out. It was the kind of pain that left me questioning not just what I had lost, but who I could really trust. The crushing betrayal of realizing the money was used to cover debts, not the dream it was meant for, sank in slowly but heavily, like a weight pressing against my chest. When I finally gathered the courage to confront my dad, I expected regret in his eyes. Maybe an apology, maybe even shame. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, and said it plainly, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. "I had loans. I had bills. You think money grows on trees? I did what I had to do." His words didn't just explain, they dismissed me, as if my education, my future, was less important than the mistakes he had made. I stood there, searching his face, hoping to find some trace of guilt or understanding. But there was none. Just a tired shrug as if my shattered plans were collateral damage in a war I hadn't even known was being fought. The years of believing he was saving for me twisted into something bitter, almost cruel. I wasn't angry just because the money was gone. I was broken because of what it meant. That every someday he had promised me had been a lie hidden behind his debts. That while I was studying late into the night, thinking my future was secure, he was pulling it out from under me piece by piece. It wasn't about tuition or numbers anymore. It was about trust, and the realization that I couldn't go back and fix what had been taken. He had gambled with my dreams to pay for his past, and then stood in front of me as though I should thank him for keeping a roof over my head. Gratitude, that's what he called it. But gratitude cannot grow in the soil of betrayal. What I felt was grief, a deep mourning not just for the fund, but for the father I thought I knew. The court confrontation felt like walking into a stage where the script had already been written against me. The room was cold, the fluorescent lights humming faintly, and every eye seemed to weigh heavy as I sat across from my dad, the man who was supposed to protect me, now treating me like an enemy. He didn't hesitate when it was his turn to speak. His voice was steady, almost rehearsed, as he painted me as ungrateful, as if my entire existence was marked by entitlement and disrespect. He told the judge that I had no idea how hard he had worked, that I was selfish for even questioning his choices. Each word cut deeper, because it wasn't just a defense. It was an attack on who I was, on everything I had stood for. I wanted to scream that it wasn't about being ungrateful. It was about being betrayed. I wanted to remind him of the years I had trusted, the sacrifices I had made to prepare for a future I thought was waiting for me. But instead of regret, he carried himself with the confidence of someone who believed the world owed him sympathy. His tone dripped with manipulation, trying to twist the story until it seemed like I was the villain for expecting what had been promised to me. The irony of it all made my chest ache. He had taken my dreams, and then accused me of not appreciating him enough for it. Sitting there, my hands clenched in my lap, I could feel the weight of every moment leading up to this one. The lies, the empty account, the confrontation at home. It had all led to this sterile courtroom where the truth and the twisted version of it were battling in front of strangers. And as much as it hurt to hear his words, a fire started to build inside me. For the first time, I realized that if I didn't stand up for myself here, in this room, his story would become the truth everyone believed. The strength I found in that moment didn't come all at once. It was born out of silence, out of sitting there while my dad's words echoed against the walls like accusations carved in stone. My hands trembled, my throat tightened, but somewhere beneath the fear and humiliation, a voice rose inside me, steady and unyielding. I lifted my head, met the judge's gaze, and finally spoke. At first, my words wavered, but as they left my mouth, they grew stronger, carrying the weight of every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every hope that had been stolen. I told the truth, not just about the money, but about the promises, the trust, the years of believing I was preparing for a future that had quietly been erased. My dad tried to cut me off, shaking his head, muttering under his breath that I was exaggerating, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. For once, I refused to let guilt drown me. I made it clear that this wasn't about entitlement. It was about honesty, about the betrayal of taking what was never his to spend. Each word felt like reclaiming a piece of myself he had tried to strip away, and by the time I finished, the trembling in my hands had stopped. I felt grounded, not by his approval, but by my own courage. The judge nodded slowly, the room quiet except for the shuffle of papers. I knew then that even if the outcome wasn't everything I hoped for, I had already won something greater. I had taken back my voice. I had proven, at least to myself, that I was not the small, ungrateful child he wanted to portray me as. I was someone who had been wronged and was brave enough to stand in the open and say it out loud. In that moment, I understood something I never had before. Strength doesn't come from never being broken. It comes from refusing to stay broken. The transformation of pain into power didn't happen overnight. It unfolded slowly, like a seed breaking through soil after a storm. When the case was finally over and the weight of the courtroom faded, I found myself standing in a new kind of silence. The money was gone, the promises shattered. But what lingered wasn't just loss, it was clarity. I had spent so long believing my future depended on what others set aside for me, on the safety net built by my father's word. But now, stripped of that security, I realized something stronger. My future could still exist, not because of what was given to me, but because of what I was willing to fight for. At first, it was hard. There were nights when I stared at textbooks, wondering how I'd ever afford the next semester. Mornings when I worked shifts that left my body aching before class even began. Yet every hour I earned on my own, every step I took without relying on a broken promise became proof that I was building something real, something no one could take away. The anger that once burned in me began to turn into fuel, pushing me forward instead of weighing me down. I stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. I stopped measuring my worth against the debts of someone else's mistakes. Instead, I chose resilience, shaping my pain into determination. And in time, I came to understand that while money can vanish, while even the closest bonds can fracture, there is a power in surviving betrayal and choosing to rise anyway. That power became mine. The betrayal that once felt like the end became the beginning of a new kind of strength. I no longer saw myself as the child who lost everything, but as the person who built something greater from the ashes. And though the path ahead would be longer, harder, and lonelier than I once imagined, it was mine. Every step earned, every dream reclaimed. And that was worth more than any fund could ever hold.